Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Mindset Alchemy podcast, where we explore the power of words, thoughts, feelings, and energy, and help you create those beautiful and amazing dreams that you dream during the day as well as at night. What if you could have the future you would love to have? What if by being present, you can give yourself the present of your life? And because of that, I am so delighted to welcome Taryn van der Merwe today. Taryn, welcome. I'm so glad to have you on the show.
Thank you. Thank you, Janine. So lovely to be here with you and all of your listeners today. So thank you for the gift and the honor.
Taryn, you do some amazing things, one of which I love is the Sophia Code. But besides that, can you explain what you do, where you came from, and then we'll explore after that?
With absolute pleasure. So I think I will go backwards. I'll go from where I came from, which led me to what I do. So I was brought up in not a hugely religious family. We had, religion was there, learned about Jesus and all of his stories. But I went to boarding school at different parts of my childhood, and in grade, here in South Africa, back in my day, Janine, you and I will agree that
Yes.
that was 4 and 5. We now add 2, which is grade 6 and 7. I had to quickly do the maths in my head.
So primary school.
Yes. And yeah, I became actually very, very religious. I was at boarding school. I was missing home. I was missing having a real caretaker that was available, a parent that would kiss me goodnight, hug me goodnight, would be in the hostel was what we called it, on a Sunday evening, often by myself, because a lot of the other kids would come to school on Monday morning. Even if they were weekly boarders. So feeling very alone. And I found a lot of community in the church. And I became quite radical at 11 and 12 years old. But I realized now that it really was, my faith would always be my North Star, and it would always guide me. So I'm not surprised now that I went into the church in such a strong way. But fast forward after that, so yeah, got a lot of grounding, a lot of nurturance, a lot of sense of community from the church in those very young years. And then at around 15, I then left boarding school. I didn't go to high school and boarding school, much to my disappointment. I was really looking forward to being in boarding school for high school, but my dad said, no, you're back home. And then, I guess I started, being a teenager and letting go of my Christian faith. And then something, I was looking through the newspaper, because that's what we did back in those days, in the early 90s. And then there was this advert for an international speaker that came to South Africa, and she spoke of angels and all of these things. And all of a sudden, there was just this knowing in me that this makes sense. This actually answers a few of the questions that my teenage brain was contemplating. And that's all it was. It was just an expansion in my consciousness to know that there isn't just God and Jesus, but there's this beautiful angelic realm. And that's what it was. My dad actually took heed of that, and he ran with that. He actually went to see this international speaker, much to my disappointment. And then he ran with it, and he became a master a Reiki master, a hypnotherapist, a psychotherapist. And I was just asked to enjoy the end of my teens and my 20s in its fullness. And Janine, I can tell you that I have many, many stories to tell around just how human was in those times. And I love it. I loved every minute of it. And it was when my oldest, who's now 15, when he was 5 months, I was 31 when I gave birth to my oldest. Because I was a martyr, very codependent, needing to be needed. So I was the needed one, found very, needy people in my life, really was caught up in the whole martyrdom energy, trying to be the perfect employee, the perfect partner, the perfect sister, daughter, and now mother. And I was near breaking point. Now I've realized that I'm a projector. That changed my life a few years ago. And I realized now I was trying to, be what I didn't have sustainability physics-wise. And I remember walking down the stairs and my knees literally shaking. I couldn't even walk down the stairs without my body wanting to collapse. And I knew that I was on the brink of a nervous breakdown. I was on the brink of a physical nervous breakdown. And if I didn't get some form of intervention, I wasn't going to be able to be the mom that I wanted to be, that I needed to be.
Well done.
And thank you. And I grew up, listening to talk show hosts, and I remember one talk show host having a guest, and this lady said, and I wasn't a mom, it wasn't really something that that was on the top of my list either of becoming, but she said, when you are a mom, you give up the right to self-destruct. And it was just a seed that planted in me, and obviously for a reason, because as I was seeing myself self-destruct, I realized that I needed to make some radical changes. And that's when, because I had this kind of understanding about Reiki and more holistic healing, I then sought out someone that's when my spiritual awakening really got activated, amplified. And back then, it was, I was very committed to my spiritual awakening, to my soul's development. I would set up sessions. I still do now, actually. I set up sessions for the whole year. So my whole year is pre-planned, and it's almost like I used to say, that's when the universe gets to know what to present to me when it needs to present it, and I'll be supported through it. So I wasn't reactive to my healing and my soul and spiritual development. It was happening as a response of the support I had set up for myself. And it was, part of my budget. I would forego luxuries and a lot of things that other people were doing because my spiritual soul development was my ultimate priority. And I did all these. So I didn't think I had a gift. So yes, mentally, cognitively, I knew I had a gift, because that's what they say. Everyone's got a gift, right? But for me, I would sit in all these circles and these spaces, conscious spaces, and people would be touching crystals and feeling this and having meditations and seeing this and knowing this. And I just had nothing. I touched the crystal, it was a stone. I would, go into meditation and have to navigate my thoughts and all of these things. And any course that, mentioned any activation or, developing a gift, I was in my hot pursuit of actualizing my gifts, because I really didn't think that I had any. I thought I was at the back of the queue when gifts were handed out. But I also had this direct and divine knowing within me that I would be doing the work I'm doing now. So when I was 31, I had kind of said, okay, when I'm 35, and then 35, I fell pregnant with my youngest. And I was in a meditation. We have these pivotal moments in our journey to wholeness where stand out and we don't forget. And I was putting a lot of pressure on myself to leave corporate, because I was in corporate at that time, to leave corporate to pursue the soul-aligned business that I knew was in my heart, that was a calling in my heart. And yet in this meditation, we all picked cards from an oracle deck, and I picked patience. And in the meditation, I was presented with a future aspect of myself. Now, we've always been taught that everything is past. And it was quite interesting that I was connecting with the future aspect of myself that was, showed me as a spiritual monk, as possibly like a Buddhist monk, where I had already embodied spiritual patience. And now I was being asked to embody spiritual patience in this reality, in my humanity. And that my youngest was actually brought to me to really amplify this patience that I was now asked to sit in. And it felt good. It felt aligned. And so I kind of allowed the patience to resonate and integrate. And then I said, okay, well, when I'm 40, right? Because everything happens when you're 40. So let me start my soul aligned business when I'm 40. And 40 came and went. 41 came and went, and 42 happened right in, alongside COVID, alongside lockdown. And my corporate company were rolling out retrenchment packages. And for 2 weeks, I kept saying, I wish I could take a leap of faith, until I actually listened to what I was saying. And within 2 days, I'd made the decision, and I then took the retrenchment package. And within 3 days of making the decision, I had to drive the lonely road, because it was very, very what's the word, quiet. The streets weren't filled with cars. I drove to my office, handed in my laptop, and closed the book, not just the chapter, but the book on a 22-year corporate career. But while this was all happening, unbeknownst to myself, a year prior to that, even though I was chasing my gifts and doing all of this, still soul development and spiritual awakening, a year prior to actually leaving corporate, the Sophia Code found me. And even though I had done a full decade of deep, accelerated, committed spiritual and soul development, the Sophia Code completely cracked me wide open. Had a massive corporate initiation, had a massive initiation that happened through my corporate space. And but there was just, again, this direct and divine knowing. And when I didn't even know it was, I was led into this Facebook group. I don't really like to be told what to do, and this Facebook group had a lot of rules.
No.
A lot of rules. And I read everyone diligently. I read everyone because you had to agree to them, but there was this safety. There was just this safety in these rules. And I thought, okay, well, it feels safe. And I went into it, and for 2 weeks I didn't know what they were talking about. They kept referencing the Sophia Code, and I really didn't. And then only after 2 weeks did I realize it was a book.
It's an amazing book, by the way.
Exactly.
The knowledge is life-changing. I found it life-changing, yes.
Like just one paragraph, you could meditate on the rest of, for the rest of your life, and it will just constantly evolve and change alongside you while you're reading that one paragraph. So I completely get you. And once I learned that it was a book, I had to get my hands on this book. And I had to wait 3-4 weeks for this book to arrive. But I had this feeling surging through my body. And the feeling was, when I gave it words, was I'm here to bring birth the Sophia Code to South Africa. So I was immediately on the phone with the team angels of the Sophia Code. And I'm like, do you have a teacher training? This is the feeling. These are the words. I don't know what to make of it. And anyway, long story short, I signed up for the Sophia Circle Facilitation Certification, which led me to going to America in October 2019 for the Sophia Code Conference. And yeah, my whole life obviously changed just from that. I called it a soul retreat. So I went solo, the soul and soul retreat is
SOLESOUL.
There we go. And it was amazing. I still said to the divine, I'm like, if you want me to have one-on-one time with Kare on the stage, I'm not letting go, because I had declared that I was flying business class way in my 20s. I said, if I ever do a long trip, I'm flying business class. And it's an 8-hour trip because I flew Emirates to Dubai, and then 16 hours from Dubai to LAX.
Oh,
so
I've done that trip. It's long.
And I was like, sorry, I knew in my 20s already that if I was going to make this trek, I'm going to make it in not in style, because I don't think I went into why I wanted a business class ticket, and because it was a solo retreat, I wanted to be in a cocoon. I really didn't want to be in other people's energies, and for me, business class allowed me to have this cocoon. So I said to the divine, listen, if you want me on stage with Kare, I'm not giving up my business class ticket. So you either make both work or I'm doing my, because they were almost the same price.
Wow.
And yeah, the heavens opened and I manifested every single thing that I wanted, needed, desired for those 2 weeks in America. And there I actually met a soul sister who guided me in and through the records, the Akashic records. Bearing in mind that a couple of years prior that, I had this Akashic record consciousness come in and swirl around, but no one in my immediate circles actually read from them. And I kind of just, it was still there, but I kind of let it go because I just didn't find anyone to guide me. But it was a trip all the way to Sedona, which, you know, lives in my heart. I have a very, very special space in my heart for Sedona. I actually pined and cried for her for a full year after I came back. And even now when I tap into her, I can get quite emotional. But what I had to acknowledge and realize is that I am her, she is me, and we never separated.
Yes.
Because she had that much of a profound impact on me. And yeah, I went into the records, learned how to read my records, and I just knew I would teach this. It is my big why. I believe everyone should be reading from their Akashic wisdom, from their Akasha. I believe that it's been kind of hidden from us for a reason, because this is where we get to connect into our truth. I believe it's a rite of passage.
Yes.
So not, it shouldn't be for a select few. I believe that when you're at a certain soul age, not just a, physical age, that you actually get because we're always in our records. I believe we're always tapping into our truth. We're always in our Akasha. But what we get to do is we get to do it consciously. We get this 3D language. We get that roadmap and how to consciously be in it, heal, co-create, and manifest. And then from there, so now this is leading into what I do now. Because of that initiation that happened in corporate, I was in PTSD within 2 to 3 weeks of a certain individual joining. Completely triggered my post-traumatic stress. I was having panic attacks for the first time in my life at 41. And because I was dealing with a Western problem, I decided to seek out a Western solution, which was a psychologist who my higher self knew where to guide me. And she is, to this day, my mentor. And I just knew when I sat in front of her, I actually said to her, will you mentor me? She's, very, as much as she's academic, a psychologist, she's also very holistic. And from that, I've actually studied alongside other psychologists in psychotherapy, in brain-based therapy, in hypnosis, taking meditation even further into hypnosis. And the space that I work from now, Janine, is from a space where I have a lot more tools. As you know, I was in this hot pursuit of my gifts. So every kind of course out there, Taryn was getting her certification in, thinking that this certification would be the one where I actualize and realize my gifts.
So resonate.
So now the space that I work from is one from congruence. Congruence is another North Star of mine, almost like a superpower within me. And that is what's had the most impact on me, is what I actively resource from. That is, as you know, the Sophia Code, the Akashic records, and brain-based therapy. Those three energy spaces, modalities, have been the most life-changing for me. And from that space of congruence, I now use those in my spaces.
I love it. And especially that you call your space Wildflower and Heartsense Healing. Because for me, I work tremendously with herbs, the essence of herbs, the essence of the earth. And I've spoken about heartfulness and heart sense for many, many years. So when I saw this, I went, oh, yes, this is my lady. It's just so awesome. Please, can you explain for our audience about the Akasha a little bit? Because many are unaware of it. I know how beneficial it is for myself and for my clients, and even from a family perspective. Could you give us some more insight around that before we explore something else?
Oh, I'd love to. Thank you, Janine. So your Akashic Records is, it's also labeled like your Book of Life. It's this for me, everyone's Akasha is different, like how it presents itself. For me, it's this ancient library. And just like any library, for those that didn't grow up with libraries, so for us, Janine, we absolutely know what it's like to go to a library to resource information. All of our school projects were done with encyclopedias, if you were lucky enough to have a set at home, or the library. That was our go-to. And for me, that's the Akasha. It's got all of these books that hold all of your experiences within those books. Just like a library is managed by themes, there's all these themes within our ancient library, within our Akasha. And what we do when we go into it, whether you've learned to, the 3D language, the roadmap, how to go into it yourself, or actually have someone to have fresh eyes on something that may be a bit too close, because, you'll know, I know, even for ourselves, we go to our colleagues, to our peers, to have readings, because some stuff is just too close for us to see, and we need those fresh eyes, that different perspective. And so you would bring a situation, a theme into your library, into your Akasha, and then you'll receive all of the threads. Yeah. And then but what happens is, when we are hooked into certain stories, into certain beliefs, programmings, imprintings, conditionings, beliefs, illusions, fears, we have all of these books open, and we directly interacting with all of those stories that have fueled this one or two, these narratives within us. And what we do when we are in the Akasha is that we understand those threads, if it is relevant for us to know, or, the threads, we really want to go to that root, origin, root cause. And then what happens is there is a beautiful healing, completion of those themes, a closing of those books, just like you would in school. You would complete a project. So you would close those books, you put them back on the shelf, because no experience is just then forgotten. We get to reference that experience and the wisdom from that experience. So they're always available, but we no longer feeding into those experiences that are actually derailing our self-actualization. So it is this ancient library for me, that we get to access all of these themes and deeper understandings. And we, because we have soul lines, we have bloodlines. So that all gets placed in this hall of records, this book of life. And that's why I say we're tapping into that all the time. We just don't know it. I was on Hoover Dam, because I did an excursion in America to Antelope Canyon. And I was sitting on the grass, and this big voice bellowed and said to me that, like, my gift comes naturally, and this is we put a lot of reference onto our clairvoyance, like, oh, if somebody sees, then they're connected. But the truth is, our gifts are so innate to us that we overlook them as gifts. And one of my gifts is accessing grandmother wisdom, being a keeper of grandmother wisdom. And this beautiful grandmother voice came to me because I was connected to all these like physical grandmothers in my space. And they were like, your gifts are so natural to you that you overlook them. That every time you think you are thinking something, it's actually us speaking through you.
Yes.
So naturally, so innately. And then from that, I realized that is also where I'm connecting wisdom from, is from the Akasha. I just don't know that is where I'm gaining my wisdom, gaining my insights, gaining my intuition from, is through the sky grandmothers that is directly linked into the Akasha. And that's why my big why is that people get to, either through a reader like yourself or myself that accesses the Akasha, or actually ultimately learning how to access it themselves. So yeah.
Very powerful. Absolutely powerful. Taryn, if you could, I love what you said there about the innate wisdom, especially being a projector. We do tap into the future, and we are living where others are still to arrive. And it can make for some interesting disconnections sometimes. What tools do you use to keep yourself connected here, even though you may be there?
Lovely. Thank you, Janine. When I first started my rich, committed, deep spiritual awakening, when I was on this hot pursuit of my gifts, I really, and I believe a lot of us have experienced, depending on where we're at, where we chase our divinity.
Oh, yes.
Where all we're seeking is our divinity.
Yes.
And I remember, like, back in the early days, like, judging, looking down on the human people, the unconscious people, because here I'm raising my consciousness and I'm really mindful about what I eat and what I do and how I do it. But I'd almost gone into this hierarchy of, putting myself on the pedestal and looking down at all of the unconscious people. Look what they're doing. Until one day it dawned on me, Janine, that we're already whole, complete, and divine.
Yes. Oh, yes.
That if we wanted to be holier than thou, we would have kept our angel wings on, and we would have been overlooking and overseeing the great change that is upon this planet of ours. But we came to be boots on the ground. And what does that mean? That means that we get to be in our humanity, and that's the gift. That ascension is in the descension. That now I get to be in my humanity, and I bring my divinity into my humanity. So even when I'm partaking in unconscious human behavior, I'm doing it consciously. Yes. And when I believe that I'm in my divinity, I'm actually bringing my humanity in that space, because that's what I came here to be. I came here to be a living angel on earth.
Yes.
Not, outside of my humanness, my humanity, but in it. And that is where we asked to be, is have our divinity and our humanity in that balanced space. We're already whole, complete, and divine. What we asked to be is to be human. Yes. So for me, it's all about, you used such a beautiful energy right in the beginning as you were introducing the space, and presence. That is vital for any of the places and spaces we are in, is when we can be grounded through our heart, connected through our heart, and then self-resourced within our heart, as above, so below, for within, as below, so above, for within. And be in that space of grounded presence and in our humanity, in our physical body, that's the safest space we can be in. That's the safest place we can be in. And that's, even before you hit record, I asked you, can I just have a moment just to ground myself, to create some presence, to create a small intention for how I want to show up and be seen in this space. And the breath takes us there so effortlessly, so easily. Our divinity isn't something that's outside of us. It lives here through the breath. And if we can just take that moment to breathe. And as you said, be in that hearted energy. Into a space that I call the cosmic galactic gateway. I see it as a airport, because there's energy going up that's connecting to all that is, to our higher self, to our oversoul, to all that is, the great central sun, all of these divine, beautiful, high energies. But it's also the airport where we then get to ground into Mother Earth, into her heart womb of no thing, where we are constantly being reborn anew on her etheric body through all of her emanations and her evolutions. But it's asked to be in our heart so we can be self-resourced with our divinity, with our humanity, with my body, my heart, my mind, and my soul as a collective consciousness that makes up Taryn.
Yes. Oh, wow. We could talk for hours, Taryn, especially you now introduce the collective consciousness. Oh, yes. Now we can get really excited. Taryn, our time is coming to an end for this show. Would you like to share just one or two more nuggets with our audience about where they can be a human being rather than a human doing?
So just quickly, I want to share the reason why I chose Wildflower Healing. There's a lot of parts to it, but basically my vision is that we get to be wildflowers we get to be a wildflower on this beautiful field of other wildflowers, just like stars are in this beautiful system with other stars. Stars don't dim their light, they shine brighter. Flowers don't go, oh, I can't be, blossom and bloom and love and grace if you there. We just shine. I want to use quite elaborative words, but we just shine. We just blossom and we bloom alongside each other, whether you want to see yourself as a star or a wildflower. For me, wildflowers have other meanings, and create a beautiful kaleidoscope of color. But we don't have to compete against each other, but we can actually add value to each other and create this beautiful, like to see a wildflower field is just magnificent. So that's one of my parting, encouragements, is that be the most blossomed and bloomed flower that you can be alongside each other and create this beautiful kaleidoscope of color. And then I want to just reference on how to really be in our humanity. And I just reached for my Sophia Code book, because on page 48, I just want to reference this because this is my ultimate paragraph. And it's in the paragraph of surrendering into the age of grace. Okay, so on page 48, it says here, the seed of all miracles is faith, and the space in which those miracles blossom, wildflowers, is called grace. Now, on the other page, this is where we can really bring it into our humanity. On page 49, it says here, humanity is ready for the spaciousness of grace. And you're talking about collective consciousness. We often think about humanity as collective consciousness, but I say bring it into yourself first, because this can only operate here if it's living here. So war, hatred can only operate there because it's living in here. So if we can, our humanity is ready for the spaciousness of grace. And then it goes on to say, grace knows how to end wars that humanity does not know how to end. So grace knows how to end those wars within us.
Yes.
That we do not know how to end.
Yes.
Grace knows how to be at peace when humanity does not know how to be at peace with itself. Grace, by inviting this beautiful, surrendering into this beautiful, miraculous age of grace, of miracles and grace, we get to bring peace into our body, our heart, our mind, and our soul. And then it says, grace knows how to forgive what feels unforgivable. Grace knows how to forgive those parts within us that we have deemed unforgivable, that we've separated ourselves from ourselves. We've diluted ourselves because we have thought that our thoughts, feelings, actions were unforgivable. But grace knows how to forgive those unforgivable feelings. And grace knows how to love what feels unlovable. When we invoke and bring and embody grace, we get to love those parts of us that we have deemed unlovable. So grace is my go-to. The breath and grace and heart sense are my go-to.
Beautiful, a beautiful tripod of expansion and creativity. Taryn, again, thank you so much for your beautiful presence, wonderful work, and the change that you are making in this lifetime, lifetimes that are still to come, lifetimes that have been, and those concurrent to us currently. People, reach out to Taryn, reach out to myself, and allow yourself to be in grace today. Thank you again, Taryn. Bye-bye, everyone.